All right, let's get right into it. We'll start with a butterfly pose. We join the soles of the feet together and push them out. And as always, you can support your knees, your forearms with blocks, your forehead with a block. You could sit on something. Now in this pose, many people are tempted to do this. Okay, that's a different pose. That's called Baddha Konasana, and that's not the pose we're doing today. So we push our feet out. Sometimes this is called a diamond pose, but in yin we call it butterfly. Okay, so the feet are out, we relax forward and down. And I do want to emphasize relax. So let your arms relax, your head, your neck. Use support if you need it, but you don't need to pull or yank yourself down, okay? Okay, we're going to switch poses, so we'll just come up and then taking the legs out straight. It's a small change, but it can be a very powerful change. We're decompressing the backside of the spine here. And generally, as we straighten the legs, it takes up the slack in the hamstrings, and it allows the back to round more fully or aggressively. So it gives less slack in the hips, and so the spine tends to take up more. Now again, I really do not recommend grabbing or pulling your feet. Just let your arms, head, neck all relax. And again, if it's a little too intense for you, use some support. Of course, if you have an acute injury, then maybe you don't do this today. So as some of you know, I had an acute injury on Monday, so we didn't do the active practice because of that. And that's a great example of what I'm talking about. This is just the way it is sometimes. Sometimes yoga is usually good for us, but at certain times it's not, and we need to just lay off. So again, the good distinction to make in your own mind is between acute and chronic pain or injuries. So acute things are generally the things that we say, oh, I'm just not going to do that. Chronic pain, chronic injuries, very often we learn to work with them. So we learn what we can do in a practice. And B, sometimes, not always, but sometimes by actually moving into the discomfort and the pain, we actually can coax the body to heal itself completely. All right, so let's rest for a moment. Come up and then back onto our back. Just relax, take it easy, feel the rebound. So again, as some of you know, I hurt my back over the weekend, and I was in this rebound. I could definitely feel that injury. And as I've said many times in the past, very often the areas where we feel the most sensitivity when we come out of the pose are the areas that will actually receive the most benefit. So again, if I didn't know that, I might be overly concerned about feeling that injury and think that, oh, I'm hurting myself, I'm making it worse. And honestly, that could be the case. So if after this practice I notice that things get worse and stay worse, then I may conclude that I can't do this right now. This isn't actually good for me right now. But chances are what will happen is the pain will subside, and then I'll actually feel better afterwards. I'll actually have more mobility before I reach pain. And that's generally how the healing process works. You sort of make things a little worse, and then they get a little better. A little worse, they get a little better. So you're doing a sort of stair step, and then eventually, hopefully, there's no more pain there at all. You're free, completely free of pain. That's the ideal situation anyway. Okay, let's bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out a bit. And again, this is just supposed to give us a little relief from those long stretches that we were doing. And again, I can definitely feel my back here as I move. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Okay, it's just my body's way of talking to me and telling me its condition. Okay, so let's continue with the banana. We'll move the hips over to the right edge of the mat. Extend our arms up overhead. Reach up, grab the right wrist, and pull it over to the left. Take your left leg, move it to the left, and then cross the right ankle over. We're looking for a stretch here, right waist and ribs. And if you don't feel it, I don't, you move yourself over, wiggle yourself over, okay? And then once you've got the stretch and you feel safe, then you hold that position. As I mentioned last time, I have an injury in my shoulder as well, so I'm going to bring that shoulder down. If you think all these injuries are from yoga, they're not. They're just mostly from just getting a little older. I've practiced yoga for years without any kind of injury, anything like that. If anything, I probably have less injuries than I would if I were practicing yoga. And the other good news is most of these injuries are much better than they were when I first got them. So many of them are healing. Some of them very slowly, some of them more quickly. And I don't know, my experience is once you reach a certain age, that's sort of how it goes. I would love it if, I were just always completely pain-free, but these days that isn't a reality for me. I was talking with a student of mine, gentleman, who I believe he's in his 60s. He's never told me his exact age, but I know he's at least over 60. And I was talking about, these little things that have come up for me in my late 40s. And he said, oh yeah, when you get to be 60, your pain tolerance has to go way up. He's like, if I was experiencing the amount of pain that I have now on a regular basis when I was in my 20s or 30s, I would think something was really wrong. He's like, but now it's just sort of, part of life. So I never heard that before. That's an interesting, interesting idea. And, you know, I don't know if people talk enough about these sorts of things. And it's not to say that everyone's experience is the same. But again, my experience is up until my mid-40s, I didn't have a health problem in the world, generally speaking. No pain, good eyes, good teeth, good ears. And now a lot of that is starting to change. And I welcome that change. It's actually helped me learn quite a bit about my body. It's helped me learn about healing and how to heal my body. And maybe part of it is me. I truly believe that I can heal my body completely. It may take time, and it may require me to try different methodologies and different things. But as I learn about these are things that I share with others, and it helps them. And so again, while I enjoyed, you know, the first part of my life, which was completely pain-free, I also enjoy the challenge of learning about my body and learning how to heal it and learning how to keep it running optimally. And yoga is definitely a big part of that. There's no question about that. Continuing with my yoga practice. Let's switch sides. So as you make your way through center, again, you might notice you feel certain things. You might pause for a moment and just feel the two sides of your waist and ribs and see if you can feel at least a subtle difference or a subtle change. And we'll move our hips over to the left side. This is optional. I just do this so that I can stay on my mat here. You don't need to do that. It's not essential. And then again, bringing the arms up, grabbing that left wrist, pulling over. Right leg to the right, left leg over. And again, I personally am not really getting enough stretch to my satisfaction. So I'll move myself over like this, just sort of wiggle myself over. Okay, now I'm getting a nice, powerful stretch to my side. Now, one of the things I've noticed, again, as I've had to deal with these injuries, these various injuries, is they're actually all on my left side, which to me is very interesting. So my left hip was the first thing to bother me. And then more recently, my left shoulder. And then very acutely over the weekend, the left side of my back. So again, these things may be all biomechanical, which would be the kind of the Western perspective, is maybe there's something wrong with my foot or my ankle or my knee. Or maybe the fact that my hip got hurt first. That's kind of making things very funky on this left side of my body. is causing the muscles to react in a certain way. It's possible. The Taoist and yogic view, the more ancient Eastern view, might be along the lines of energy. And again, energy is affected by our physical health, you might say, but also by our mental and emotional health. So the left side very often will represent our more feminine side, our less dominant forward side, okay? The yin side, okay? And same with our front. The front is the yang, the active side, and the back side is our yin side. So again, our dominant hand or dominant side, which for me is my right side, this will often represent, again, our more masculine qualities. And so if we're having injuries and problems on our left side, for an Eastern medicine practitioner, that could mean several things, and it could include things like, again, emotional or mental imbalances. If one is too active or too aggressive in one's life, or one is out of tune with their feminine side or a softer side of their being, then this could result in problems or injuries on the left side. Now, I'm just making huge generalizations here, so please don't take any of this as diagnostic. You'd want to work with a professional, a healer, someone who could look into and measure and work with energies. Now, that might be an acupuncturist, it could be an energy worker, energy healer, someone who does Reiki. Those are all the types of things where people can look and work on these types of things. Now, again, from my perspective, I think in the West we often feel like, oh, that might be bullshit, so I'm not gonna do that, or that's not true, or whatever. My perspective is we have all these tools, and sometimes some of them work and sometimes some of them don't. And it just depends on the instance. So sometimes I turn to Western medicine to heal or to do something, and then sometimes I approach it in a more Eastern way. Some of it is also dependent on cost and other factors. So I don't see it as like we have to choose. It's rather like, which one makes the most sense, and which one do I think would actually help the most? Which one can I afford? Oftentimes, these more traditional approaches are more affordable, but they can also work much more slowly and take longer. So we live in a wonderful time. We have a lot of tools at our disposal, both the modern tools that science and medicine have brought us, but my experience with these ancient healing modalities is they're very powerful. There's a reason why human beings in the past used these methods, because they actually work a lot of the time. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and unwind from this. We'll take a little rest on our back. So I'm interested to see how my left side feels as I come out of this. Do I feel any sensitivity? Or interestingly, no. So I thought maybe my back, that left side of my back has been acting up. Maybe it would be sensitive, but no. All right, let's bring the legs in. Give them a little squeeze, shake it out a bit. And then let's hinge up to seated. So with hands under our hips, the palms down, Extend your legs up. If there's any pain in your back, you're going to bend those knees, and at some point the pain should go away. Otherwise, do it with your legs straight. Lift your head and neck up. Take a deep breath. Exhale, lower the legs toward the ground. Just before they touch, pause. Inhale, pop the legs up, and exhale, let the legs pull you up to seated. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. Let's move into a tabletop position. We'll do a little bit of marauding bear here. Move our hips and spine around a bit. Give things a good stretch. We're also warming up our spine for backward bending, which is what we're going to do next. And then let's do a little of down dog just to give our legs some movement. Okay, now we come forward and down into a sphinx, propping ourselves up on the elbows, okay? And what you'd like to feel is a little bit of gentle compression in your back, just a bit, not too much. And if you don't feel it, then you want to go back a little further. This is called a seal pose. Okay, now both poses have the same modifications. So shoulders depressed or relaxed, head held up or dropped forward, legs together or apart. As many of you have heard me say in the past, back bends are some of the most therapeutic things that you can do in yoga. So please don't let fear keep you from doing a back bend. Maybe you can only do very, very little. That's okay. Do whatever little amount that you can do. Okay, take your time, gradually coming down. Just rest for a moment. And then now we come to perhaps the most challenging posture in today's class, for most anyway. Also, perhaps the most therapeutic. So please take your time, listen very carefully as we set this up. And if this next pose is not appropriate, please repeat this one. Almost everyone can do the Sphinx safely. Even if you're like way down here, this is like the only back bend you can do, that's fine. You know, you can really adjust this. The next pose we're going to do is, again, potentially more therapeutic. It can actually help us heal perhaps more than this one, but it is requires a lot of care. Otherwise, we can end up hurting ourselves. So we're going to press back to a kneeling position, and you might want to be somewhere near the front edge of your mat. Now, there are many ways to kneel like this. You can sit on your heels, which is what I'm doing right now. You can sit between your heels, which looks like that. You could sit on a block or a stack of blocks, okay? Your feet could point back or out to the sides, and you can pad your feet. So I'm on two carpets, right? My mat is a carpet and this is a carpet. So I have enough padding so the bones of my feet don't hurt. But if you're on concrete and you have a thin mat, or you have really bony feet, or your ankles are not particularly flexible, then this might be difficult just because it's painful here. And this really has nothing to do with the pose. Okay? If I could take my foot off and put it in the corner while I practice, I would, so that it doesn't get in the way and it doesn't get injured. Can't do that. So we need to find something that works. So add padding if you need it, like a towel or a blanket that you have at home. You can roll a towel and insert it underneath here so the ankle joint does not need to straighten completely. Okay? And then once your feet are happy, think about your knees. So there are a few ways that you can address knee pain or discomfort. The first and perhaps simplest way is just to take your knees, try taking them wider, see what happens. I can already feel, I don't have problems with my knees, but I can already feel less pressure on my knee just by doing that. Now in yoga, a lot of times you'll hear yoga teachers telling you to squeeze blocks and knees parallel and all this kind of stuff. Don't worry about that, okay? In this instance, it's perfectly fine for your knees to be wide, okay? There's nothing dangerous about it. It's also okay if your knees come up a bit when you come back, all right? The other thing you can try is sitting on a block or a stack of blocks. Now, you may not have blocks at home, so you could stack up some books, something like that. A box, if you have a box, a wooden box you could sit on, okay? So knees and ankles are in the safe zone, what we consider safe. And then see if you feel stretch in your thighs. If you do, that's going to be it for you today. Okay, you're just going to let that stretch, okay? If you don't, then what I'd like you to do is you begin lowering back. This is the first step or stage, hands. Then maybe you come back here, elbows, which can be kind of awkward. So if you have a bolster at home, you have some pillows you can lay on, you can do that. That's a way many people practice this posture. Okay? And then from there, if you feel like you can do more, you can do crown of your head or all the way back onto your back. So it starts as a quad stretch. As you come back further, the hip flexors begin to stretch. And then eventually it begins to compress your back. It is a back bend, so you will likely feel it in your back. Now again, I can feel lots of things in my back. Last weekend when I injured my back, I felt excruciating, mind-numbing pain when I did certain things. It just stopped me in my tracks. I could barely move. So I was in bed for several days, icing and doing red light therapy on my back to try and heal it. So that sensation, that acute, sharp shooting pain, I knew that was not safe. There's no question. So again, that was my body's way of saying, hey, stop, rest. And that's exactly what I did. All right. Now, if I tried to ignore that or take some, Tylenol or painkillers so that I could get back to work, I might have been able to dull that pain, but I also might have hurt myself more by ignoring it. Okay. But again, that was acute. That's an acute injury. You need to rest. Maybe you need to ice. That's one thing. But what shows up more often than not in yoga class is people coming with chronic injuries, chronic pain, things that have been there for years. And so again, I come back in a pose like this, I might feel all kinds of different sensations. And it can take time for you to make sense of that. I've been doing yoga a long time. I've been listening to my body. And at this stage, generally speaking, I have a pretty good sense, again, of when I'm getting beyond the safe limits of what my body can do, when my body is telling me to stop. But there's a lot of sensations that I experience on a regular basis that are uncomfortable and maybe even painful, but I know that they're actually ultimately good for me. And so my yin teacher, his name's Paul Grilly. He's the gentleman who basically codified yin yoga as we teach it today. He gave it its name. He set up, parameters and things that teachers all around the world follow. So he's a very influential figure in the yoga world. And he would say, we should ask the question, is this pain good for me? Because right now I could say that I'm in pain, and I am. In my experience, I interpret this as a good pain, in that it's going to help my back heal from my recent injury, and it's going to help keep my back strong ultimately. Again, some of you might think, oh, well, if you know so much, then how come you hurt your back? Yeah. Again, I'm getting older. My body's changing. I've gone many years practicing yoga without hurting my back or any part of my body. And so what I think you'll find is many people my age, they just start to have problems with their bodies. Things start to hurt. Things start to go wrong. And that might just be an unavoidable part of aging, with or without yoga. But what you may not know is I may be in much better shape than I would have been without yoga. So I might be in crutches now for all we know. I'm probably not, I'm exaggerating, but the way to think about it is the same way you think about brushing your teeth, all right? Sure, you might still get a cavity brushing your teeth, but if you weren't brushing your teeth, you might have had 10 cavities. Let's gradually unwind. Take your time. Making your way onto your back. Lots of sensation for me, right? In my back, in my knees. Now again, because of my experience, I know it's intense, it's painful, it's okay. It's actually good. If you're not there yet, that's okay. You only do what you sense is okay for you. And hopefully over time, you gain more and more confidence about knowing what is and isn't safe. All right, let's bring the legs in, give them a little squeeze. Just move a bit. Be gentle. Again, I can feel my back is very, very sensitive now. It's just telling me, hey, you've put me through a lot, so be nice. Again, the intention by putting it through a lot is to strengthen it and to heal it. So it'll thank me later, but right now it's saying, hey, be gentle. And I do need to be, because, again, if you can hurt yourself doing this stuff, you can hurt yourself trying to heal. Okay, next pose, twisted roots. So right knee over left. You can lock ankles if you like or not, up to you. And we drop those legs to the side. Again, feel free to play around with the position of the legs. Closer to belly, further down. Position of the arm, straight or bent, palm up, palm down. Position of your head, okay? Let's switch sides. Okay, so we'll go ahead and unwind. Just bring the legs in, give them a little squeeze. And then when you're ready to unwind, you can unwind onto your back. And set a timer for 6 minutes. And just allow your body to be still for the next 6 minutes or so.